There's a painful kind of exhaustion that comes from constantly trying to keep people in your life. Not because you love them too much, but because somewhere along the way, you started believing that if you stopped trying so hard, they would slowly drift away from you. So you keep reaching out first, you keep checking in, you keep fixing awkward silence, carrying conversations, making excuses for their behavior, and convincing yourself that maybe they are just busy, tired, distracted, or going through something difficult. And at first it feels harmless. You tell yourself that effort is important in relationships. You tell yourself that being caring is a good thing. But over time, you start noticing something uncomfortable. The more you chase people, the less effort they seem to make themselves. It slowly becomes one-sided without you even realizing it. You become the one maintaining the connection while the other person simply responds whenever it is convenient for them. And the hardest part is that you usually do not notice it immediately because emotional attachment has a way of blinding you to imbalance. You focus more on the moments when they give you attention than the long periods where they barely give you anything at all. So you continue trying harder, believing effort will eventually make them value you more. But in many cases, the opposite happens. The more available you become emotionally, the more your presence starts feeling expected instead of appreciated. That is the hidden danger of chasing people. You slowly train them to believe that no matter how little effort they give, you will continue showing up anyway. And once someone becomes comfortable with that dynamic, they stop fearing your absence because they no longer believe you will ever truly walk away. This is why constantly chasing people can quietly destroy your self-respect. Not all at once, but little by little through repeated moments where you ignore your own emotional needs just to maintain someone else's attention. You start accepting delayed replies that clearly communicate disinterest. You start excusing inconsistent behavior. You start lowering standards you once promised yourself you would never lower. And eventually you become emotionally exhausted because deep down you know you are fighting for a level of effort that should never need to be begged for in the first place. The truth is, genuine connection does not constantly require chasing. Healthy relationships naturally contain mutual effort, mutual curiosity, and mutual care. But when you are afraid of losing people, you often begin overcompensating without realizing it. You try to earn closeness by becoming overly accommodating, overly available, and overly understanding. And while that may temporarily keep people around, it often creates relationships where your value becomes tied to what you provide instead of who you are. This is why some people suddenly change when you stop chasing them. Not because they magically became better overnight, but because your withdrawal forces them to finally feel the absence they were once taking for granted. When your constant attention disappears, the dynamic changes. The emotional safety net they relied on quietly vanishes. And for the first time, they are forced to notice the silence you used to fill. Some people respond by reaching out more. Some suddenly become more attentive. Some act confused about your distance even though they ignored your effort for months. And in that moment, you begin to realize something powerful. Many people never truly notice your value while you are constantly overextending yourself to prove it, because constant availability often hides your worth instead of revealing it. People become used to your presence the same way people stop noticing background noise after hearing it long enough. But distance changes perception, silence creates awareness, and your absence often communicates more than your endless effort ever could. This does not mean you should start playing manipulative games with people or intentionally withdrawing just to create attention. That is not real confidence. Real confidence comes from no longer forcing connections that clearly lack balance. And this is where things begin to change internally. You stop measuring your value by how desperately someone chooses to hold on to you. Instead, you start paying attention to reciprocity. You start noticing who genuinely checks on you, who makes consistent effort, and who only appears when it benefits them emotionally. That awareness changes the way you move through relationships, because you stop confusing emotional pursuit with emotional connection. You begin understanding that constantly chasing people usually comes from fear. Fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, fear of being forgotten, fear that if you stop trying, nobody will choose you willingly. But the moment you start confronting those fears honestly, You stop building your relationships around desperation and start building them around self-respect. And self-respect changes everything. It changes the way you speak, the way you respond, the way you tolerate behavior, and the way you protect your emotional energy. Instead of immediately running after people who pull away, you begin stepping back and observing their actions clearly. You stop forcing closeness where effort is absent. Because deep down, you already know something important. People who genuinely value you do not constantly need to be convinced to treat you well. And once you fully accept that truth, you stop exhausting yourself trying to earn basic consistency from emotionally unavailable people. You also stop taking every change in behavior personally. Sometimes people pull away because of their own confusion, emotional immaturity, or inability to communicate honestly. And chasing them rarely fixes that. In many cases, it only teaches them that they can continue giving minimal effort while still keeping access to your attention. But when you stop chasing, you create space for clarity. You finally see who values your presence naturally and who only valued the convenience of your constant pursuit. That clarity may hurt at first because not everyone will rise to meet you when you step back. Some people will disappear completely once the effort is no longer one-sided. But honestly, that disappearance is sometimes the closure you needed all along, because it reveals the truth of the connection without illusions, excuses, or emotional overcompensation hiding reality anymore. And while losing people can feel painful initially, losing yourself trying to keep people is far more damaging in the long run. The right relationships will never require you to abandon your peace just to maintain them. They will not survive only through your exhaustion, your anxiety, or your constant emotional labor. Real connection feels balanced, it feels calm, it feels mutual. You are not constantly wondering where you stand because effort flows naturally from both sides. And the moment you stop chasing people who only value your pursuit, you begin reclaiming the energy, confidence, and emotional stability that you slowly lost trying to hold on to them. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stop running after people. Step back completely and allow their actions to reveal whether they ever truly intended to walk beside you in the first place.